Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Stephan podcast, brought to you by Bold. For American listeners, you can buy Bitcoin and sell Bitcoin over at getbold.io. Now, joining me today are Rockstar Dev and D from BTC Inc. Now, Rockstar is, as I believe, you're an advisor, and D is CFO of BTC Inc., the company behind Bitcoin Magazine and Bitcoin 2025 or the Bitcoin Conference. We've got a few topics that I know you guys were keen to chat about. This concept of Bitcoin as money or monetary maximalism and not just as a store of value. And of course, being able to actually use Bitcoin in the real world, like in events and conferences like the Bitcoin Conference. So let's just start on this idea of Bitcoin as money. What is the significance of making this argument about Bitcoin as money and being a quote unquote monetary maximalist?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you kind of always think about when you think about Bitcoin and this notion of monetary maximalism, the sort of the three checkpoints, if you will. I think that most Bitcoiners kind of think about, which is store of value, medium of exchange, unit of account, and yeah, and I think right now I feel like store of value is something that is just kind of like it sort of dominates how we talk about Bitcoin today. And there's this sort of like assumption that over time, based on that sort of evolution of money, it will get to medium of exchange. And so when it comes to monetary maximum, I think, ultimately that's what we all sort of aspire to, Bitcoiners, that this will become money. And then it gets a little bit fuzzy because some people say, well, right now it is money, right? I save it, just because I'm not sort of buying a coffee with it, the way I'm using it makes it money. So yeah, I think it varies based on who you speak to, but as it relates to sort of us and our business, and as a CFO for this BTC Inc., you mentioned we do the conference, things like that. I like to sort of like go one layer further and just say, at the heart of it, we're just a Bitcoin adoption company. The media things we do, the conferences, the magazines, those are just sort of like, ways we sort of effectuate being a Bitcoin adoption company. But yeah, it's you can't be a Bitcoin adoption company if you're not sort of eating your own dog food, so to speak. And we definitely do that by, accepting Bitcoin payments and, paying vendors in Bitcoin, contractors in Bitcoin. And, it's been really interesting to see because I think, as it relates to monetary maximalism, we definitely have it like intertwined in sort of the fabric of our business operations. And I think Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, I think we're further along than most. And so what's really cool about, helping run the financial operations of this business is I feel like I'm glimpsing into the future of when it's more going to be a medium of exchange, just because, we are just kind of at the center of, the industry and kind of working with all these different people that deal with Bitcoin. So yeah, I know that kind of like rambled on about like different tangents, but yeah, I feel like we're 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 at the cusp of the technology it's in a good state, but it's not in a perfect state. And it's not even just trying to walk the walk. There's things like international wires and things we have to navigate, where Bitcoin is without it's more convenient to actually use it in many instances with business, and even being
100%.
able to, yeah, just to check a mempool and things like that, and to see when something confirms versus waiting on a wire receipt or picking up the phone and talking to your bank. Yeah, I feel like we have just an interesting front row seat to it all. So yeah, sorry, I kind of danced
Yeah.
around all of that. Rockstar, that's
No,
let me hear your answer. Maybe it's
I
more
think you
succinct.
touched on a lot of important topics, and I know when I announced that I'm joining BTC Inc. to advise, there were a lot of people that were like, "Oh, Rockstar is switching to ordinals," you know. But honestly, a huge motivation for me to do this was Dee and Michael, who was featured in that Paid in Bitcoin documentary that shows how he helped with the whole, if it's a Bitcoin conference, he needs to have Bitcoin as payments. So to showcase that part of BTC Inc., because BTC Inc. is like a lot of people, a lot of different groups working on different things. But as Dee is now saying, Bitcoin is being used and it's really Bitcoin adoption company. It's just about featuring also medium of exchange efforts. So again, working with D and helping develop some of the technology that's used in paying vendors that's used at the conference. It's really exciting for me. And to answer your original question, Stephan, for me, it's Bitcoin will always be money first. And if it's not money, I agree with Jack Dorsey, then we have failed. If it's just another tool for rich people to get richer, sure, maybe store of value needs to come first. But now that we are there, okay, the next step is medium of exchange. Then the next step is unit of account. So, but let's go on that journey then, and let's go forward with executing towards that.
Yeah, it's a good point you raise about this. How far have we come as Bitcoin as an ecosystem? Now, I mostly agree with you guys. I think it's more just I kind of come to a similar conclusion, but I think for me, it's more just I recognize that there are a lot of people who maybe they don't hold a Bitcoin cash balance per se, and that's why they're not as willing to earn and spend Bitcoin. Now, of course, we as all, let's say, either public-facing Bitcoiners, you should try to lead by example. You should try to earn and spend Bitcoin. So certainly, I earn and spend Bitcoin, whenever it's a possibility. But I think I just recognize that right now, maybe most people are not in the camp that we are in, or maybe most people are not, let's say, ideological Bitcoiners. They're just kind of using it as a neutral tool. But yep. To be fair, there are these things that, there are different developments in the ecosystem and things like this. So, Bitcoin ETFs, these kinds of things that do not represent, holding Bitcoin on your own private keys kind of stuff. And so that represents, maybe part of that is an education challenge. Part of that is like we need to lead by example, right? And I think that is, that's an important, lead that we have to set, isn't it?
No, I think this is a perfect opportunity for UD to take over and talk about it, but we'll see.
Let me summarize. I think that I would say we have to lead by example, but at the same time recognize there's a lot of people who are, maybe they are going to onboard through an ETF. And we have to then sort of teach them, hold on, okay, maybe ETF is part of what you're doing, but you've got to also, hold your own private keys and learn to earn and spend it like real money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, it's one of the things is like when you think about like where we're at in this point in time, this is obviously my opinion. I worry a little bit that people are this new wave, this new entrance of Bitcoiners, especially through the ETF, that, that those sort of checkpoints I talked about, right? Store of value, medium exchange account. They're increasingly, so I got involved in Bitcoin in 2017, and I'm a strong believer. Like when you join in the people that you learn from, that really shapes your view on Bitcoin from the onset. I feel like this new wave of adopters, and first I just want to say there's no right or wrong way to get into Bitcoin. If it's through the ETF, if it's through buying it on exchange, whatever it is, nobody starts sort of like with a super self-sovereign cold storage sort of thing. So there's no right or wrong way, but my worry is that people are becoming potentially less interested in ever being money. So it's not assumed it will just be money, because those are just sort of, that's this assumed monetary evolutionary pathway, is that I think some people are fine with the ETF. They don't want to spend the Bitcoin ever. And, that just worries me a little bit, maybe because, like I said, I don't consider myself an OG from 2017, but I especially someone with a finance background, was really excited about the notion of this sort of decentralized currency, no banks, all that, and using it more as a this medium of exchange instrument. So it worries me that there's just this increasing cohort, and I see that kind of increasing and accelerating the next wave of adopters, where if nobody is interested in that, it's not just going to just happen, or it's not just going to assume to happen, or it will be relegated to this very like small, hyper niche, circular type economies. And the other thing I'll say, kind of related to that point, is when I'd say the most common question I get when I tell people about Bitcoin, I work in Bitcoin, and what they know about Bitcoin. And the first question any new person who knows nothing about Bitcoin always asks me, the very first question, I think is pretty common, is, well, what can I do with it? Where can I spend it? That's always the first sort of question. And I think it's kind of a bummer a little bit where, and I've heard people answer it, they kind of have to sort of stumble with answers like, well, you can't really use it right now. You kind of, you don't spend it,
Don't
save
spend it,
it.
hodl.
Or you
Yeah,
end up
don't
with the
spend it.
savings technology answer, or you kind of end up with the
Yeah.
hodling as the answer, which is a use, but it's not
Right.
the only
No.
use.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I'm not trying to like pearl clutch over, this too much, but it's just an observation I've had, especially with the ETFs kind of coming in, and it's a double-edged sword because number go up, right? That is, I think most people can universally agree, that is a magnet for adoption. That's what catches people's eyeballs. What is going on with this thing here? And so that brings people in, but it can also kind of, in my opinion, lull people to sleep a little bit because so long as numbers going up and people have these paper gains, then Bitcoin is fine. Don't touch it, don't mess with it, don't spend it, don't whatever. So yeah, so that's just kind of like a general concern I have, and so that's why I think it's important, at our conferences, things like that we showcase Bitcoin, people using Bitcoin, right? Before I even joined BTC Inc, I went to conferences, it was funny, or it's kind of like, a little bit awkward maybe, where you would hear the praises of Bitcoin and, from these panelists, things like that, and everyone breaks and we go buy our soda with a credit card, right? So this felt like it's very kind of like, wow, we were all really excited, fired up, and we're like, well, I'm not using that right now, so or I'm not spending the Bitcoin, or I don't know how to do it or use it, whatever. So I always found that a little strange. So I feel like it's on Bitcoiners, not to just assume it's going to become media exchange. You either walk the walk, or it's not going to happen. And I also am not sort of oblivious to the fact that people naturally they coalesce around what's most convenient. And swiping a credit card is, let's face it, it's going to be more convenient. But I do think the technology is getting better. That's what I'm excited about for our event here in a few weeks, and the Bolt cards that Rockstar has introduced us to, so we can really kind of like almost go toe to toe with the speed and convenience of spending Bitcoin as easy as like swiping your credit card and things like that. So I think it's important for us, if we want Bitcoin to be used in media exchange, we have to actually like do it. We can't just like talk about it. We need to actually effectuate it happening. And so that's, I think, in the next few weeks, we're really going to put a big spotlight on that.
Back to the show in a moment. This show brought to you by CoinKite.com, the creators of the best Bitcoin hardware security devices, such as the Cold Card Mark IV and the new Cold Card Q. Now, we use Bitcoin hardware security devices to keep our keys offline, our private keys offline. Now, the way these work is you can do that setup, write down your 12 or 24 words on the seed word cards, and keep that secure. Now, you can use this device to interact with the Bitcoin network using software such as Sparrow Wallet, Electrum, or Vector Desktop, or Nunchuck, as a few examples. Now, you have a range of security features that you can use with these devices, such as passphrases. You can use seed XOR, or my favorite is multi-signature. Now, if you're starting in a basic way, just start with the device and the USB-C cable, plug it directly to the computer and use it that way, and then later improve your setup. But I believe these devices are great at helping secure your coins, especially as you start to migrate up into multi-signature security. But don't be disheartened, or don't be scared away. They are accessible, and I think you actually do learn about Bitcoin in the process. So to get yours, go to coinkite.com, use code Livera to get a discount on your cold card. This episode brought to you by Galloy. They are building banking software for the Bitcoin age. So if you are with a bank, a fintech, or a startup looking to offer some kind of Bitcoin product, whether that is a Bitcoin collateralized loan, deposit accounts, or payments, Galloy can help you. Their latest product is called Lana. It is a loans management platform, and you can use this to come to market quickly and offer a loans or Bitcoin collateralized lending product for your customers. Now, Galloy have a lot of experience in the space. They started with Blink Wallet in 2020, and they've since grown this to become a community favorite over time. And so they have a lot of experience making things work in a secure, reliable, and scalable way. So if you need assistance coming to market quickly with a Bitcoin banking product, such as lending or deposits or payments, talk to the team at Galloy. You can email them. The email is biz@galloy.io, or go to the website galloy.io. And now back to the show.
Yeah.
Walking the walk. I think I can definitely agree with that we should all do our best to walk the walk. So, Rockstar, let's hear from you. Can you tell us a little bit about the Bolt card aspect and what the plans are for the upcoming event in Vegas?
Absolutely, because to me, just to add to conversation you had, is I believe we should get people into Bitcoin, however. But once people are in Bitcoin, I think they absolutely should be nurtured towards all three use cases. Like use Bitcoin as store of value, use it as medium of exchange, use it as your personal unit of account. And we should do that in such a way where it's not like preachy, but rather you're the one walking the walk, and then you're the example for other people. Like, so you're not kind of telling people what to do, you're doing it yourself, and then by them observing how it changes your life, it naturally will motivate them to change their life. And that's kind of what I am doing with my approach. And then Bolt cards that you mentioned, that I introduced BTC Inc. to, it's a fast technology that a lot of people contributed to, and it was used already, giving credit to Baltic Honey Badger for leading there with their medium of exchange effort in 2023, then Bitcoin Atlantis 2024, then Bolt card protocol developers that open sourced everything. And then there are companies that started, creating business models on top of Bolt cards, selling the designs, being a Bolt card company, registering trademarks, all of that. But it's great that this technology is being developed as a fast technology, and we now, as BTC Inc., can build on top of that, create cool designs, which by the time this podcast is out, will be announced, that we can get support from people like Jack Dorsey, who will be featured on the Bolt card. From most people will be surprised. Michael Saylor, he is joining medium of exchange efforts. So credit to you, Michael, for joining this and agreeing to have your Bolt card. And then Senator Cynthia Lummis also being featured on a Bolt card. And,
right. And I noticed the Cynthia Lummis, Senator Cynthia Lummis example is an interesting one, because I think recently, as I'm sure you guys are well aware, there was there's a little bit of social media, let's say, discussion about when she went to PubKey, and I think she paid with fiat, and then there were some Bitcoiners who were, let's say, up in arms about that. So this is definitely an interesting shift, isn't it?
Yes, well, I mean, I wouldn't call it a shift. I'm more, when those situations happen, is that people want to control people. And then they also want a virtual signal how they're better than whoever. Cynthia Lummis, what she has done as a senator for Bitcoin, and the way she has represented it, Senate, I don't think she owes anyone any kind of explanation. So if she goes to PubKey and wants to pay with credit card, she can pay with credit card, with ETF, with whatever. She's good in my book. The thing is, now that we have these Bolt cards, I'll make sure she has a couple of them. So anytime she goes to pay, she can pay with Bitcoin, just tapping the card. It's like
and
credit
just
card
for
experience.
People who aren't familiar, can you just explain, like, how's it going to work? Like, if you rock up to the conference, how do you get a Bolt card, load some sats on it? How do you use it?
So we have a few different activations here. I don't know if D, you want to present it more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we've got a lot of ideas. Nothing's kind of in stone. Like all things event planning, everything's subject to change up to day of. But we've got a lot of great ideas kind of buzzing around, including just frankly, like dropping them just when you register in the bags, giving them people out while you're in the merch store, or like waiting in line in the merch store. We have a Bitcoin bar. So if you're going to spend in Bitcoin, you can cut the longer lines that you'll probably have with the folks paying credit cards. So just a lot of good incentives to really encourage people to sort of use the technology. And we had some Bolt cards in Nashville last year, and I will say one of the cool things was the workers, the concessionaires, how cool they thought it was when people were using it, and the eyes lit up, and then just kind of this it was the first time they ever seen anybody, do anything with Bitcoin. And just like, that same sort of like really fun, like good vibe memories we all had the first time we sent like a Bitcoin transaction. You kind of, introduce that to, the people that like work these events and these venues. But yeah, so a lot of good ideas on how to, encourage people to sort of use bulk cards. And one very sort of exciting thing we're embarking on is, setting the sort of world record for Bitcoin transactions in a single day, and really kind of inviting everybody that they can participate in this and be part of, frankly, history of, doing this and setting this record. And so giving them, some kind of memorialized sort of like, token to show that, not like a digital token, like maybe a badge or something like that, I was like, oh gosh, I was like, I can't, don't want to have to deal with that.
Uproar.
Yeah, that uproar, like they say token. But yeah, some kind of thing to commemorate their participation, because like this record attempt is very much, something that should be owned by Bitcoiners that are really interested in advancing Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. And then, of course, right, it's a, anytime you attempt a sort of like world record, it's there's a publicity stunt kind of component to it, and so the work's not done just because you set a record. But, the goal is to really sort of spotlight that, yeah, you can use Bitcoin for like a high volume transaction throughput, at these unique instances where we have all these people get to congregate in one place. So yeah, so a lot of good ideas to come. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's been really fun to kind of work with Rockstar and the team to like really think about how to activate this to the absolute fullest.
Yeah.
No,
and in terms of the availability or let's say the possibility of spending Bitcoin, what I've seen at different events, and again, not knocking, because at the same time I understand it's not easy to organize these events, but sometimes you go to these Bitcoin events and there's like one vendor who you can buy something with Bitcoin with, and then everything else is like fiat only. You know what I mean? So what's the plan here? Are you aiming to try to make sure that the vendors, are accepting Bitcoin? Like what's the plan there?
If I may jump into this as someone that worked on both like custodial, non-custodial side and a KYC, no KYC side, the real issue here, Stephan, is the fact that it really depends a lot on venues. Yeah. And local regulations. During Bitcoin Mina, to give an example, we wanted to give every vendor opportunity to accept Bitcoin payments. Then, with local venue, they came back and said just simply, okay, we don't have the license. We need to work on licensing. Otherwise, we'll just can't let you. It's against the law. And you know how laws are in Dubai and other places there. So you got to follow that. So we worked on following that. But then when we resolved that problem and we got the licensing requirements in order, we came to vendors, and there were individual vendors that were like, okay, no, I don't want to accept Bitcoin. So what should I do? I should force them to accept Bitcoin? No, you only can if people want to buy in. So it's the similar situation with Las Vegas. The important thing is from our side, D, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are trying to, everyone that wants to accept Bitcoin, and we're advocating accept Bitcoin. But if vendor comes back and says, no, I just don't, I want credit cards, then they will only accept credit cards. But for me, what they are going to see, vendors that opt out, they will see how much they're missing out. So it's good that we let them go that direction, because once they see how much they're missing out on these bolt cards with Jack, Sailor, Cynthia Lamis, the fourth design will keep, I had to get the cypherpunk in, so it's Satoshi. But once they see how much they're missing out, they will be like, next time, let me join in. Because I think Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, as money, as payments, will advance much faster now that we have this UX improvement, the way I see it. I always saw when you come to the terminal and you need to get your phone out, unlock it, scan a QR code, confirm the transaction details, swipe something. Like, it's so many extra steps. Now that you have a card that you can come and tap to the terminal, that's that experience, that like a missing link, that we're now solving and taking it to the next step. So really excited about that.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing I'll add, yeah. So the one challenge, especially with our event, that I'm pretty envious about other events, in terms of like just size, is F&B in particular, which is kind of the main thing people are buying. It's not controlled by us. It's controlled by the venue, and they, we've kind of slowly chipped away to get them to be more receptive about accepting Bitcoin. But effectively, what their ask is that, well, okay, you can do it, but our cashiers, our workers aren't going to touch it. Like, it's got to be your workers. So you have to have the Bitcoin like register and the fiat register. And it just creates kind of a very like clunky, awkward experience a little bit by having to sort of like, double up your staff for every single kind of point there. So we're trying to instead think of a more creative way to just sort of have like, bar like food areas or whatever that are just dedicated to Bitcoin, and just making that sort of like the fast lane, and just incentivizing people to sort of drive there, and also with like discounting things like that, to the extent that we're able to sell things ourselves. But yeah, you're definitely limited by these venues, unfortunately, with like what they can or what they will allow you to do. And the other thing too is it's not so much the process of accepting payment, it's the cash management, so to speak, in that like, they don't like the idea of like, we're the experts about Bitcoin, we'll handle it, we'll reconcile with you later after the event. And we've done that with some venues. I think with Miami, when we were at the Miami Beach Convention Center, we would kind of like at the end of every day, they would look at all the receipts, we'd reconcile against Bitcoin balance. But yeah, I think the TLDR really on that front is, the world around us, and maybe this is just the broader point in general, it's just not as moving as fast as we are. And so we're kind of, we're warming them up to it, but at the end of the day, it's hard to activate these just large venues that have just so many new rules. But I will say they've been somewhat like warm and receptive, and eager to sort of learn. But we still got some work to do.
And you're
there.
trying. Like, I can see as someone now that's within BTC Inc., there should be credit given to UD and other people at BTC Inc. that are advocating, pushing forward, like,
Yeah.
spreading
So
the word.
I guess when it comes to trying to break the world record, do you have any tips on ways to do that? Are you just gonna have to buy a lot of coffees, Rockstar, to help boost up your transaction count?
I'll be throwing away the Bolt cards, not money this time, but yeah.
Well, it is Vegas, so people will need to be caffeine. So I think there will be multiple trips in the coffee line for sure. But yeah, no, we've got like we have a bazaar area where we want to definitely activate all of our vendors that are selling things there. So yeah, I mean, incentives, right? Incentives are king. I think Bitcoiners, understand that quite well. Discounts for if you pay in Bitcoin up to 21%. Trying to think of some other things to really kind of get it rolling. I think I don't put a lot of pressure on Rockstar, but would love a live counter, transaction count. I think that'd be kind of exciting for people to see where we're at. We can't disclose right now what the record is, in terms of like what that watermark is. I will disclose though that the official registry for the record is it's labeled as cryptocurrency. We can mark it as Bitcoin, and me and Rockstar talked about that. I was like, I want this to be a Bitcoin record, but then I was like, you know what? Yeah, I was like, let's throw down the gauntlet. If somebody from another ecosystem wants to sort of beat it, then so be it. Let's make sure Bitcoin is king. So I kind of like welcome that's how it's going to be like registered in the official books, if you will. But yeah, we'll definitely have a lot of like ways to get people sort of excited and motivated to sort of participate and contribute.
Yeah, and I love how this is going to develop in the future with like a Bitcoin only record, because as soon as Ripple people see that we have a Guinness World Record for most transactions, they'll be like, no, Ripple processes 21 million transactions in a second. Now that it will be
Oh
amazing.
yeah, and I'm sure they can just come out with like a small fraction of their pre-mine and just put it into come up with a big number on one day.
God, I'm looking forward to this. But official merch store, I gotta highlight that people should also, if you don't know how to participate, come to the official merch store, buy another Bolt card. They make. We will have some quantity of some of them available for sale. So come there, you pick up. If you didn't get design you like, come there and pick it up. Or, as I said, find Uncle. I'm now definitely thinking I should have a moment where I'm throwing away Bolt cards preloaded with some Bitcoin on it personally. And then, I don't know, I have million sats on one of the cards. So whoever finds that card is
Nice.
as Pierre Rochard loves to say, like, millionaire. Yeah, and
You're gonna make someone a millionaire.
Exactly. Yeah, in the spirit of Vegas, right? Yeah, the sort of like raffle off type of mentality. The other good thing too, we try to do this with Nashville, but I think what happened, I think April of last year, if everyone recalls, is that we had an exodus of lightning companies in the U.S. because there's such a chill from I think this was following
The
what
DOJ
happened
samurai
with,
thing, yeah.
correct, exactly. So that really took the wind out of the sails and really trying to activate Bitcoin payments at the event because the most popular wallets, Phoenix, IBEX, in terms of accepting payments, all sort of left. And I think the one thing we'll be able to do now, where a lot of these companies, I think Phoenix Wallets is now available in the U.S. once again, is to educate everybody before they kind of know before you go, and hear the available wallets that you can have. The bulk cards are great. But for people that are brand new who don't have time to sort of download an app and load it, like for people just kind of new to Bitcoin, the bulk cards will be fantastic. For the folks that are a little bit more sort of seasoned, familiar, we definitely want to give them heads up of what wallets are available in the U.S. And to have them sort of ready to roll because of course all those mobile wallets will work as well at these point of sale stations in addition to the bulk cards.
Yep.
So yeah.
And it works
So
the other
for those
way
people
around.
who want to just do the standard scan and pay like you're probably used to, that's going to be available for you as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, but the thing is, a lot of these wallets also have Bolt card support. So if you do get a Bolt card with some sats on it, you will be able to swipe those sats to your wallet.
Right. Okay, so you can like load it with sats kind of thing.
It's activation for all the projects. If you want to incentivize people to install your wallet and swipe sats, go for it. And I will absolutely support and like people that don't have Bitcoin wallets that are coming to the event. They're like, okay, how do I actually hold these sats on my phone? Let me show you. Install this wallet. Tap to your Android phone, swipe the sats into wallet balance, and now you have it on the wallet.
The lead sponsor of this show is Bold, the best place to buy, sell, and save Bitcoin. For listeners in the US, Bold lets you secure your financial future with complete peace of mind by integrating a low-fee, Bitcoin-only brokerage with next-gen multi-sig vaults. With Bold, you can smash buy Bitcoin or set a DCA plan for only 0.99% fees and seamlessly deposit the Bitcoin direct to your Bold vault. The Bold Vault is a 2 or 3 collaborative multi-sig where you hold 2 keys and Bold holds 1 as a redundant backup, protecting against loss or theft. You can use Trezor, Ledger, or Cold Card hardware wallets to spin up a Bold Vault in just a few minutes, and the Bold Vault is the only collaborative custody vault available with 0 monthly fees. They're also offering 0 fees on your first $10,000 of Bitcoin buys and $25 of free Bitcoin when you buy $100 of Bitcoin or more. Try Bold today and upgrade your stacking experience over at getbold.io. And now, back to the show. And so, I guess when it comes to this broader idea of walking the walk, do you have any ideas around what, or at least how should people think about this, broader than just, even a conference day, but just in general, in their normal day-to-day lives? What are some ideas you have on that?
Yeah. So before I joined BTC Inc. and I was kind of what I call, I guess, my old normie job. I was really I was active sort of in my local community, going to meetups, things like that. But I wanted to really take it a step further and actually kind of like, orange pill, like my barber, the local brewery I go to, things like that. These sort of what I would consider like lower hanging fruit type vendors and merchants where, you can't go to Walmart and say, hey, I pay in Bitcoin, right? You want to go to people that have a lot of control over their own sort of back end, their own financial ops, things like that. And so in terms of like in terms of like walking the walk beyond just, doing just something fun and exciting at a conference, it's really introducing the like those sort of like the low friction, easy to activate food trucks, like I said, people that do just like direct services, people, if they mow your lawn, it's really starting at that level and orange pilling people and then really sort of motivating them to sort of earn Bitcoin, right? And to be paid in Bitcoin. I've had this discussion on Twitter with a few people in that, in the thought is that the reason why Bitcoin as a medium of exchange is kind of, is kind of in a lull or it's going to be slow going is that it's going to be customer first, customer driven. Customers are going to say to vendors or merchants that they want to pay in Bitcoin. I have a little bit, maybe it's contrarian take. It's an opposite take where I think it's actually merchant driven. I think if customers like don't even know what's possible or what's out there, they're never going to be like motivated enough. And I think it's really about merchants who want to have Bitcoin on their balance sheet in this very sort of like organic way via providing goods and services and sort of presenting it as an option and then earning it. It's not gonna be a windfall. You're not gonna have 1,000 Bitcoiners show up at your barber shop and you're gonna make, but like you're almost kind of DCAing via just like the adoption curve of people over a steady amount of time, if that makes sense. And I really think that, by these types of merchants just sort of having it available as an option, I think is kind of the tail that wags the dog a little bit. So yeah, it's really about people kind of, it's continuing the mission of kind of like spreading Bitcoin adoption and people being motivated to not just stack Bitcoin via a third party exchange, but providing goods and services and then offering, saying like, yeah, I would like to be paid in Bitcoin. So that's really how I think this kind of continues to advance forward. But the technology also has to improve over time because, the biggest barrier is people are always going to kind of retreat back to, as I mentioned earlier, what is the most convenient thing to do. And if it's clunky for the merchant, they have to pull out some other device or whatever, or, the connection's bad, those are just going to be obstacles that will just kind of slow it down. But yeah, I think there's going to be a merchant-driven approach that will make this advance that Bitcoin is a medium of exchange.
Yeah. And for me, if I may answer this as well, it's simple. Friends don't let friends use inferior money, period. So, and I approach it really from the perspective, again, it's like walking the walk. I am the one walking the walk. And when people observe how well things are going for me, then they come and ask, oh, how? Like, show me the details. And that's the opportunity to then orange pill someone and get them on the path, on the journey. I agree with Dee that one thing that always is unsaid is that we do need better technology. And I think even in Bitcoin, it's a bit taboo to complain about technology and developers because developers have done so much. But we need to do so much more. And it's okay to, struggle and then, argue online and complain. But as we're doing that, continue walking your personal walk. And then again, I really encourage you all, don't let your friends use inferior money. Help them.
Okay, well, I guess that's one call to action. And just remind everyone of the details of the conference. So it is May 27th to 29th in Las Vegas. Any other key details that people need to know?
Yeah, so the record attempt is 28th, which is, I believe that's GA day one. So we want to make sure we have as many people able to participate as possible. So that won't be on the industry day. it'll be on GA day one, which is that May 28th day. And there's gonna be a lot more information to come in the next few weeks, and getting people sort of excited to sort of participate. And the coolest thing is like all levels, right? You don't need to be sort of like a hardcore hobbyist and have your Lightning wallet connected to your node at home. I mean, if you do, I mean, God bless you. That's awesome. That's where we want to get people to.
Let's go.
But there's a reason why we have these kind of bulk cards. So somebody's grandma off the street, can just tap something and spend in Bitcoin. So that's why I'm really excited. So we're definitely going to get people, rocking and rolling, and we're going to make sure that, this record attempt is something that is going to be, jointly shared and celebrated and owned by, everybody who contributes.
Yeah, I really call everyone that's coming and that's not coming. I will do a video on X where I'm going to show a QR code and, really get people driven to maybe one of my posts or posts of someone else that spreads the word and encourages people to, if you're at the conference, tap to pay, participate, go. And I'm so thankful to you as well, Stephan, for participating in this campaign to get the word out there and get as many people to Vegas so that we can set this Guinness World Record and hopefully inspire then other events to do the same, break the record. Keep going.
That Rockstar, that's one point I missed that I wanted to, like, what I really hope this does is that this creates maybe a bit of a flywheel. There's a lot of conferences, a lot of Bitcoin events, and I think kind of a rising tide lifts all ships, and I really hope it motivates everybody to be like, oh, Bitcoin 2025 only did that, or we're going to double it, and like that's good. we want everybody to do that. We want people to be breaking this record every single year from here on out, and I think if we're unable to do that, I think it sends kind of a not a great signal. And I want to we're still big picture, right? These are sort of like these fun promotional things that we're doing to spotlight Bitcoin's advancement as a medium of exchange. But yeah, 'cause the work continues on even out when the events are over. But at the least, I think it's going to be exciting to see all the other events. And some events, that's the other thing too we haven't touched on. Bitcoin as medium of exchange geographically is very different, right? In the US compared to, Nigeria, or, more sort of developing countries that, it's more difficult to get like a bank account or
they're
all
even
those things.
Leading in some areas there.
Oh, yeah. So geographically, there's a ton of nuance for sure. But yeah, I really hope this kind of inspires everybody to kind of like, lean into this. And yeah, when you have that unique opportunity to bring Bitcoiners together, let's use it as money, right? That's the point.
Excellent. Well, look, listeners, make sure you check this out. Make sure you share this episode with people so they learn about why they should be walking the walk. And hope to see you listeners out there at the Bitcoin conference, May 27th to 29th. And I'll put the link in the show notes for that also. So Rockstar and D, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Stephan. Appreciate it.